Welcome back to the show. So we were just talking during the break about the potential for whether or not there was an assassination attempt and from the Chechens on Vladimir Putin. Now the Chechens, there's a long history of there was that famously Chechen separatists. The separatists are always a funny word when you're talking about getting someone out of your country. It's very funny. Like, I don't know how the Russians have managed to do that, but they have managed to define people whose country they invade as separatists. It's, talk about 1984. But the
Yeah.
Chechens, they took those a bunch of people hostage in a theater, and the Russians just decided to kill everybody. They just basically gassed the place, hostages and all, and just said, "We're done." And the guy who, I just don't see those people as being tremendously forgiving. And yet, supposedly, these folks are in the are in the fight right now in Ukraine.
Yeah, no, Kadir, it's actually one of the elements of the Russian military that the Ukrainians keep a very close eye on.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. It's weird that there was the theater in Moscow. There was, of course, that awful incident at the school in Beslan, where it's another. The only reason I'm going to talk a little bit more about that is because it shows you, it gives you an insight into the Russians' mentality. Because both in the theater and both in Beslan, they could have taken people prisoner and pumped them for information, but instead, their knee-jerk, their basic response is, there's a nail, I got a hammer, everything I see is a nail, because that's the tool I use.
Right.
And they could have gone into the theater, for example, and not done I remember I had just recently left Moscow when that happened, and I remember that they had a whole thing about how the mixing of the anesthetic that they used, they overdid it, and that's why they killed a whole bunch of them. But they didn't. And then when they went in, a lot of the Chechens who had taken the theater were alive but groggy, and they just executed them.
Right.
And it's like, I get that mentality. I do, but it's so counterproductive. And I think that, again, why I'm mentioning this, why I'm going into this, because it shows you the mentality of Russia's use of force and use of violence. They don't look at there isn't. We do it very differently. Let's not go into how we do it. I'm talking about the Russians. The Russians' use of violence and power and military force is a very different thing than ours. They use it without restraint, because in their mind, once you decide to go down that road, if you make the decision to use violence and to use power and to use your military, then you are already past the point of control and you just go for it. It's all in.
Right.
So, that has lessons for this war as well, and why we see the brutality of the Russians in this war, because they don't do it by half measures. It's you're all in or nothing.
Right. Let's get to some of the questions, because I know I have a ton of them, so I just want to make sure we get some of the ones that are in the chat room. Johnny, who do we have first?
Yeah. So Ed's 3D Tech is asking, has Philip heard about the Gray Eagles, and if Ukraine has them yet?
The Gray Eagles? No, I haven't. Is that a military system? Is that the? I think that might be the thing coming from the one of the Scandinavian countries, a missile system or something coming from one of the Scandinavian countries. I don't know. I don't know if that's in country.
Okay, so it's a drone. It's a General Atomics, the Gray Eagle, previously called the Warrior, also called the Sky Warrior or ERMP, Extended Range Multipurpose. Okay. So these are,
and that's what you can use that against armor.
Yes. So these are, the MQ-1C Gray Eagle unmanned aircraft system is. It's one of these like loiter and drop. It's not quite a Predator drone, but it can be modified. It is
it's a U.S. system.
Yeah, it's a U.S. system. MQ-10. I'm doubting that. I think we are buying Bayraktars from Turkey and giving them to them, rather than have any of our gear accidentally fly into Russia and have its, let them peel back the metal on it and see
Well,
this is,
yeah, no,
yeah,
I mean, yeah, just today we already saw a governor of a neighboring Russian province saying that the Ukrainians attacked them. I
right.
don't know if I believe that or not, but I know that there will be a point at some point where the Russians will claim that the Ukrainians
Yeah,
did that because they know how that'll play internationally. So whether or not the Ukrainians do it, there will be claims coming out of Russia that they
right.
did. So just be aware of that.
What else do we have, Johnny?
We've got, will Severodonetsk be another Mariupol, where lots of Russians get bogged down there while the Ukraine takes back Kherson? Kherson.
I mean, potentially, yes.
They're not going to stay, though.
Severodonetsk, yeah, no, Severodonetsk is a lot different than Mariupol because Severodonetsk is a means to an end. It's not a strategic strong point that they want to hold. They have to have Mariupol because that's along the coastline and that's essential to them. Severodonetsk is strategically important right now because of it being the salient. It's the bulge, and so if they can control that, they can cut off a lot of Ukrainian soldiers. And there's an open discussion being had in Ukraine about whether or not it would be smarter to pull back to the other side of the Donetsk River, and not risk having those guys get surrounded. So
there's a also,
I don't see a scenario.
I
don't see a scenario where they're bogged down like Mariupol.
Right. There's also a huge difference in terms of the as far as the positioning of Mariupol. While it's on the water, Ukraine does not have a navy, so it's not like they're going to come back and hit it by the water and help salvage it that way. And it's 68 kilometers from the front line in the east. You would have to go through 68 kilometers of fighting to get to Mariupol if you were Ukrainians pushing through Russians to get there. Severodonetsk is blocks away, a few miles. And even when they seized a lot of it, they were still in a valley where the Ukrainians controlled the ridge line so that they could see everybody. They could watch without drones. They could see troops coming into the city and where they were going.
Yeah.
That's totally different than the circumstance with Mariupol, where effectively the Russians had already encircled it from the land side and controlled the water because the Ukrainians don't have it. The Severodonetsk and Lyman,
and that's another,
yeah.
Right, and that's another reason why they're so anxious and so many calls are coming from the Ukrainians for longer range artillery, because they can see it, but they can't always hit it because sometimes that stuff is literally out of range. So
that brings us to,
and also they have drones targeting stuff and they can't hit it, so they really want longer range stuff.
Well, they just got it because according to and this is
on its way.
Yeah, right. We just sent them 4 HIMARS systems and ammunition, 5 counter artillery radars, 2 air surveillance radars, 1,000 javelins, 50 command launch units, 6,000 anti-armor weapons, 15,000 rounds of 155 artillery, which is for the howitzers again. 4
109s.
Yeah, 4 Mi-17 helicopters, 15 tactical vehicles, and spare parts and equipment, which is in many ways might surprise people. Almost as crucial as anything else, if not more so. One of the biggest problems the Russians have is they can't repair anything and they can't build any new stuff. They literally can't because of our sanctions on Western technology. Their entire nuclear launch and targeting system is based on Western technology, on chips made in Belgium, in the United States, in Taiwan, and none of those countries are sharing that stuff right now. They're not going to, and that stuff has to be replenished and updated.
Right, but then on the Ukrainian side of things, and I saw a NATO briefing recently. It was open source, so it wasn't any secret squirrel stuff. I saw a NATO briefing where they said, "Look, apparently the Ukrainians are rushing to get this stuff to the front so quickly that they're leaving certain the higher precision artillery, there's an add-on unit that you can put onto the M109s that would allow you to control a round that would be, you can control it right to the point of impact.
Right.
But it has to be mounted on the gun. It has to be mounted on the 109.
Takes time.
And,
right.
and apparently they want to get this stuff out in the field so quickly that in certain instances they're foregoing that. So look, I still think the momentum is on the Ukrainian side. But there's going to be an ebb and flow with this war. And both sides are I mean, the Russians more so. The Russians are getting to, I think, a real crisis point, an inflection point for them. But the Ukrainians, make no doubt about it, they are tired. They are they're getting pounded constantly. Even Zelensky himself is saying 60, 100 soldiers are being lost KIA each day. So
that's awful.
Look, the Ukrainians are not supermen. They're not. It's not, and it's not like they can do no wrong.
Right.
War is tricky. So I'm not going to just stand there and be, the Ukrainians are doing everything great and they're perfect, but they're sure as heck doing a lot better than the Russians are. And I don't think that's just because their morale is up and because this is an existential fight. I think they're just better fighters in a lot of ways.
Right. Well, I would also say that all wars have these situations. I mean, go watch movies like Dunkirk and the like. You'll see that even the Allies, with every possible resource, the reality of war is horrifying. And it's and especially when you are committed to it for the safety of your loved ones and the people at home, when you really care, it can be even more frightening and exhausting because your entire life is on the line. Like Chechen mercenaries and guys from the Wagner group and that kind of stuff, a lot of them are like smoking cigarettes and hanging out in places and looting stores and the like, because they don't really have a dog in this fight. They'll go where they're supposed to. They'll kill who they're told to kill, but they're not going to do any more than that. So a lot of them are bugging out after they do some things, and it's really inconsistent. The problem that, and again, like I said, Russia went from allowing 30-year-olds to 35-year-olds to 40 to 45 to 50-year-olds in 2 weeks' time. In the last month, they've done this. That is not something you do when your fighters are they're not supermen either, and a lot of them are undertrained conscripts that don't even and remember in the beginning, a lot of them didn't even know they were going to Russia. They found themselves, into Ukraine. Yeah. They found themselves on Ukrainian territory coming from Belarus. They thought they were on an exercise. All of a sudden, they're in live fire with actual human beings that are related to their wife's best friend. Like, that's nuts.
Yeah, and and also, I mean, I'm going to steal a tweet from Mike McFall. I mean, McFall tweeted out something, I think, either today or late last night, his time, early mine. The Russians can go home. The Ukrainians have nowhere to go, so their backs are up against the wall, and that's a great motivator.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. More people's questions in the chat room as well. Infotainmentwars.com and of course twitch.tv/HalSparks. We got one more segment to go. Biden spoke in his list of, he did an op-ed about what we're sending Ukraine, and he said, we are not encouraging or enabling Ukraine to strike beyond its borders. We do not want to prolong the war just to inflict pain on Russia, which is exactly the opposite of what the Russians said he said. And that should tell you something. We'll be back.
There's no way they want to start a war with NATO.
Be happy together, whether the weather is cloudy or sunny. I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky. Let us get lucky together, whether the weather is cloudy or breezy. I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. 'Cause isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you, chugga chugga choo choo, woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling, let us smile together, whether the weather is cloudy or stormy. I will still be there in the morning, I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning, I hope that you like cereal.
Yay!
Yeah, we always have to play that for Philip as a bright moment for him. We're gonna like at some point,
Yeah.
Philip, we have to like get. I'll find a way to get them to perform at your birthday or something. Okay, so the guy that I'm talking about that I was talking about during the break was Russian. I don't know what his name is or whatever. He's a very strange looking fellow. I'll tweet it out to you, but
I'd have to look it up.
he's the guy who says that Germany and Japan, egged on by the U.S., are now getting ready to attack Russia in a hot war, and that Germans and Japanese people are genetically very aggressive cultures. Which, I mean, when you talk about like denazification,
Genetic culture?
yeah,
It's just
right.
nuts.
It's just goofy.
They're saying all sorts of crazy stuff.
Right.
They're also saying Poland intends to take back Lviv. I mean,
Right.
they live in another century.
Right. And this,
Well, there's no such thing as a genetic culture.
right. Well, that's, but there is, if you believe that, you know, your culture is a natural expression of your genetics as a people, and whether, you know, high quality or low quality people have high quality cultures versus low quality cultures. And they do have a lot of gold domes and very fancy architecture post-Soviet or pre-Soviet in Russia that they pat themselves on the back for, and that they're trying to blow up, turn into rubble in Ukraine, ironically enough. But this guy, okay, so this is a quote from this guy on the Russian 60-minute show. He said, "Be calm, comrades. Next comes World War III. The nuclear war is coming. Is that a normal approach? Is that the way to work with public opinion? People are getting worried." He's like,
I mean, you know,
it's yammer.
It's yammer. It's a lot of showboating, and they wouldn't be doing it if they weren't. Look, the Russians do this all the time. All right, they know in their heart of hearts that it's BS. It's
Right.
baloney. But they say it to. I don't know if it's halfway to convince themselves of it, or whether or not they're trying to hide their concern and their anxiety by being increasingly, wild and crazy in what they say. But one way or the other, they know that this is not going well for them. They know very well that this is not going well for them, and they're getting more and more frustrated and anxious about it, and angry. Yeah.
Okay, let's grab.
Look.
Yeah.
Yeah. Questions.
Here's a happy ending kind of question that we got from Twitch. Shet Pants with 2 Z's at the end wants to know what Philip misses most about being home.
Oh, I miss my friends more than anything else. I miss, I miss a life that was put on hold to come and do this because I felt obligated to do it. I miss, those are the things I really miss. I miss my friends, and I miss my life.
There was
That makes perfect sense.
Gary Kasparov wrote this thing: the amount of Ukrainian territory occupied by Russia is equivalent to other European countries. This is what appeasers would gift to Putin, along with the human beings who live there. Basically, the boot of Italy would be given away to Russia, or when the Germans had claimed, territory in Poland and stuff of equal size. They're like, well, just let them have it. First of all, as if Russia would really be satisfied with it. Like that, okay, we'll stop there then. You give us what we want and we'll stop there. Well, that didn't happen before either. And it never will, according to them, not according to my opinion or even Phil's opinion about this, or, but listen to what the Russians are saying on their own shows, in their own speeches, from Vladimir Putin's mouth himself. There is no stopping. And that's the crazy part.
Well, the thing with the Russian mentality is that, take what you can get, and then, and then come back and try and get more. And, it's everything is a zero-sum equation. And so there's always going to be the drive for more power. Right. And they do, I believe, at least want to be the dominant power on the continent, right? On the European continent. That doesn't necessarily mean that they want to march into Paris, but it does mean that they see themselves, they really do see themselves as an exceptional nation. And then we do the same thing in the States, but with this whole countries that have a sense of exceptionalism, they do want to see their way of life be the dominant one on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And the Russians are involved in that just as much as there are a number of nations I could mention.
Mm-hmm.
I look in the mirror,
Mm-hmm.
but at the end of the day, make no mistake about it, they have that same mentality of like, we are an exceptional country, the great Slavic Orthodox cultural identity. Everybody should be speaking Russian. It's
well, I
it's
would
not
say
a joke.
I will
It's
always
not a joke.
right. I will always say this, and I will always stand by this, and that the United States doesn't show up on anybody's 23andMe. And when you talk about American dominance, you're talking about a political liberal ideology of freedom, even if it's imperfect, that has nothing to do with what the Han Chinese are trying to do in China currently with a racial takeover, a homogenizing of that country. They look at Japan with envious eyes that they want to racially homogenize their country. And Russia wants to do the same thing with the Slavic countries.
100%.
And there's
100%.
a huge difference between a racially homogenous country talking about their exceptionalism and a racially diverse country with all of its flaws talking about a liberal world order where everybody plays by the rules. It is hugely different.
Make no mistake about it. If Russia were to dominate, the continent, or as they aspire, the globe, if they were the dominant power on the planet, their power is vertical.
Mm-hmm.
Always, power is vertical. In Russia's perception of how to use power and what power is, it is always vertical.
Mm-hmm.
It always goes to the top dog. And so, you're either hammer or anvil, and
right.
Nothing in between. Mm-hmm. So that's the kind of mentality of the world that they want. And ultimately, it would be not only just Russians, but it would be Muscovites. It goes that way. I mean, This applies to Ekaterinburg and Vladivostok as much as it does to Kiev or to Paris or London or New York. Then everything goes one direction.
Right.
It's not a system you want to live under. Trust me.
No, it's a mob structure, and it always will be. And there are people who are made, and there are people who aren't. And the Russian Duma crowd is split between the haves and have-nots just as much as the people of Russia are. We got time for one more question, I think, probably. So let's
I'm really
see what
curious about this. Peter Imbrat wants to know about the Ukraine military bikes. I do too.
Oh, the electric bikes?
Military bikes? They're using electric bikes. They're using EV bikes to sneak up on the enemy because you don't hear them. Unlike conventional motorcycles, which maybe you could hear right now.
Cat drives one of those.
They're using EV bikes. They're fighting a 21st century war. Russia's still stuck in the 19th century thinking they're playing Risk. By the way, I've seen a lot of people. I will not talk about Malcolm Nance in any great detail because Malcolm is fighting a war. Mm-hmm. I am in contact with him. He is fine.
Yeah. There's, that's, and by the way, on the very same show, the 60 Minutes show, one of the people on that show said, our goal is to denazify, Ukraine, which means to be destroyed. That's literally that. There are no half measures in this either. And Putin himself has already said Ukraine is at its end. It's a lie that they've been sold, that any Russians who are there are real Russians and should be, unless they fight against us or turn against us, should be salvaged as best we can and re-educated. I guess Chinese education camp style.
Well, they can't conceive of a Slavic nation that would actually have a divergence of power structure. Yeah. It's anathema to them. And that's why the Ukrainians are fighting as hard as they are, because average Ukrainians can live a decent life. It's not zero sum. And in Russia, you are either amongst the very large population of repressed, or you're in the elite. There's nothing in between, and it's not like that here.
Right. We're at the end of the show. Thanks so much, Philip Ittner, for joining us.
We did
Follow
it.
Philip.
Thanks everybody for watching, listening.
At Philip Ittner, 1 L and 2 T's in Ittner, and follow him on Twitter. And of course, that'll give you links to his vlog from Ukraine as well. So
My
you can catch up on
YouTube, my YouTube vlog
Search
on
Philip
how
Ittner.
Ukrainian children are suffering. Go check it out.
Yeah. I will share it as well. Thank you, Johnny Million. Follow at Johnny Million
Thanks, Johnny.
on Twitter. At Johnny Million. At Johnny Million. He got it.
Million. No numbers, no nothing.
No, nothing. He got his whole name. It's amazing. All right. And I will see you guys next, everybody on the live stream on Monday. And I'll see everybody on the radio next Saturday. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. Slava Ukraine.
Героям слава.
And thanks, Chicago.
Thank you. See you next week.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
There we go. Did we have a couple of more questions real quick, Johnny? So we,
Yeah, sure.
Let's get a couple since in a post show since we can,
Sure.
if that's all right.
And I can swear.
Colleen Martin asked, she says she doesn't feel like enough people from West Ukraine are going to where the fighting is to help with the people and the weapons. Are they helping?
Yeah, I've heard that too. If you go to Western Ukraine, you will not see a lot of men of fighting age.
Mhm.
There are some, but overwhelmingly it's women and children and senior citizens. Many of the men have definitely signed up and are not there. Look, the west of Ukraine is tricky because don't think that they're getting away from this war unscathed.
Right.
They have their internally displaced people situation. They are constantly under air raid sirens, and the threat is always there. But also, in addition to this, and I know it is not nearly as bad as having your town decimated by artillery, but there's a lot of guilt. I told you the story last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, of my friend, my Ukrainian friend, whose brother was out of the country when the war started,
Right.
and he's in Poland now. And I was privy to their phone conversation, and his brother was openly weeping because he had survivor's guilt. It's not the same as being in a war zone and being shelled and all
Right.
the horrors that are going on in the East. But don't think that there is nobody in this. There is not one single person in this country that is going unscathed.
Right.
No.
Yep.
No.
Excellent.
The mental strain on people is exceptional.
Right. What were you saying, Johnny?
Has Phil seen any of Peter Zehan's comments on the Ukraine?
Oh,
No.
Peter Zion. Peter Zion is the guy he talks about the demographics of Russia and China specifically. He's of all the folks, quite frankly, that I've seen talk about the demographics. He's the most like, you know how I am with there is no Hunter Biden laptop. He's that way with China and Russia being not existing in a couple of years. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, especially if Putin drops dead tomorrow, he's going to leave a power vacuum, and there's nobody to replace him because he can't dare to appoint an heir apparent because that'll put him in a compromised position. So even if he does survive whatever disease he's got, that problem is still going to be there, and it's a biggie. And so Russia post Putin is going to be, 22 republics make up the Russian Federation.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens. But I wasn't aware. Send me a link to him. I have been watching Operator Starsky a little bit more, and I tried reaching out to him because he's here in Kiev apparently. I'd love to do a collaboration with him. So I'm gonna openly and without any embarrassment or chagrin call on the Sparklers. To try and send that message out because I'd love to sit down with a number of people. Terrell is coming back soon, and he's going to be out in the West. He's going to be out in the Carpathians, taking Ukrainian language lessons. I get the sense that he's kind of had it with the Bang Bang. But I'd like to talk to people who have a real good understanding of what's happening here.
Right.
And I think those of us who have studied it for as long as I have and others have, we should collaborate as much as we possibly can. So, Operator
Agreed.
Starsky, if he's out there and folks can get a message to him, I'd love to collab.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that's a strong possibility. I'll do what I'll reach out to as best I can. I don't know him, but I'll see what I can do. Zion stuff
Did
is.
you see? I did do an interview with Dr. Erwin Redlener.
Yes.
That's in my latest vlog, and that's partly because I was on Steph's show with him.
There you
one time
go.
I was on Steph's show.
Right. This is my feeling is that a lot of what we're experiencing in the world is a natural change that was held back by civil society for a very long time. And then once you start pulling the thread, a lot of it starts to go. And when it comes to stuff like Russian and Chinese hegemony in the world, that it takes a while for people to be able to fit that into their skull and go, is that, because we are taught over here that America is the single hegemonic force in the world and that everything we do is bad and interrupts the natural order of things, like we're damming a river everywhere we go.
And we're the only ones that do it.
Right. Yes. That's the story all the time. And the reality is that it's a lot of even the more questionable stuff we've done, quite frankly, even when misguided, has been done with some people who I politically don't agree with and strategically certainly don't, but tried to do what they were doing because they viewed the Russian and Chinese threat as the threat that we're seeing it to be right now. They just used whatever tools were in their toolbox or the ideas they have, the only way they know how to handle it. As
long as you open up that can of worms, and I don't want to keep either you or Johnny much longer, but as long as you opened up that can of worms. So the other thing that bothers me about folks back in the States who don't travel an awful lot, who don't go out of the U.S., is that you're upset about some of the things America does or the way things are structured in the States because you were born in a country where you can expect better.
Yeah.
In places like Russia or China, they do not expect better.
Precisely.
So they do not get upset when they don't get it.
Right.
The fact that you get upset because America does things that you don't like on the global stage or does stuff internally is because you expect better. That is the exception, not the rule, in a lot of places in the globe,
especially the more powerful places.
Yeah,
like Russia, China, Saudi Arabia, Iran. Pakistan currently.
I saw it in the Ummah, the Islamic Ummah. Saw it there. I see it all the time out of Russia. The idea that you can expect something better than just raw power, and that you can that we should operate in a way other than might makes right is not the norm.
No, it never has been.
When I see people getting upset about it, I'm like, well, you're upset about it because you expect better. Because you were born in a country that teaches you can be better.
Right. Yeah, most aren't. Yeah, exactly. Well, Philip, I'll let you go too, or whatever. It's the sun has gone down. It's starting to get really beautiful behind you, so you're probably going to go.